Hey guys, today I'm reacting to how the Greeks created the first European state. Should be interesting. And if you'd like this video and subscribe to the channel, that would really help out. Well, let's get into it.
Shark VPN. Many features you can see here in the features window, and you can also set restrictions banning you from certain sites, presentations, and services that are simply better. Either shows on Netflix, convince yourself first. Many thanks again to the folks over at Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this video. When societies collapse, more often than not, what replaces them are regionalized, smaller social structures. That, at least, most certainly happened after the Bronze Age collapse in Greece. Instead of forming singular, large entities such as kingdoms, the Bronze Age Hellenic world collapsed into a set of multiple little polities and palace states. Entities that would come to shape what we today refer to as the Greek city-states. In the texts written by Plutarch, we find accounts of what Greece was like at the time by reading about the travels of Theseus, an illegitimate son of the Athenian king returning to Athens to reclaim his rights. Theseus had to battle bandit gangs on his route to Athens, and although these accounts are probably more myth than fact, they are indicative of the chaos and instability that impacted large parts of ancient Dark Age Greece. Individual polities disconnected from each other with lands in between controlled by bandit groups. The polities themselves were governed by kings or tribal families. In Athens, the rulers were tribal families known as the archons. Although we often think of ancient Greece almost in terms of an enlightenment before our time, it was by and large a set of hierarchical tribal societies steeped in tradition. The ruling families were organized in kinship groups. These families were not the modern Christianized nuclear family of our day and age, but groups of several units and branches related to each other with a patriarchal family head. These families had their norms and rules that they enforced upon themselves, and also to a degree their own religion. Like in all tribal societies under kinship structures, the worship of ancestors stood at the center stage of ancient Greek family life. Every Greek household had a shrine or an altar with a fire to be kept burning all day and all night, and where ritual offerings to the spirits of the ancestors were made. In many ways, the ancient Greek polis was a society in which the dead held sovereignty over the living. Land was tied to the ancestors of those living on the land. Kinship determined who you were and what your status within family and society was. Rights and property were tied to kinship. It was forbidden in ancient Athens to sell one's property, as selling such would mean selling the ancestor shrine, and through that betraying and splitting away from the kinship group. Women had close to no rights whatsoever. Their legal status was dependent upon their ability to produce offspring and, more importantly, heirs to continue the family lineage. If you ever wondered where the cultural practice of the groom carrying the bride through the door of their new home came from, it's ancient Greece. A traditional practice by which the wife was introduced into a new family kinship group. Her ties to her old kinship group were severed, and she became part of the new group and its ancestors. Large tribal groups developed out of the ancestral worship by families who claimed descendancy from gods such as Zeus, Hera, or Poseidon, all of which lends itself to the argumentation that religion is something that developed out of ancestor worship, and that polytheism developed through family groups and tribes worshipping different gods, acknowledging a common ancestor or each other's gods, to then work in establishing and ordering a society together. This is probably how the first Greek polis came to be. When new Greek cities were founded, a common ritual was for the city's founders to dig a trench and bury within it soil from the previous city. An abandoned city was considered to be a city abandoned by the gods, as it had been abandoned by its people who worshipped their ancestors, and those ancestors were tied to the soil. The act of burying soil of the abandoned city was an act of connecting to a past and continuing it. When Greeks went to war, they did so for their city, not just for a cause, but for their family, kinship group, and the ancestors themselves. Loss of the city meant loss of the ancestors and a loss of one's gods. It's possible that the word patria, or fatherland, as in a land of one's fathers, comes from this social arrangement. which is why patriotism, as in the citizen's duty to serve and protect one's city, was such a highly praised virtue among both ancient Hellenic and Latin civilizations.
Huh, makes sense with the origin. I guess the etymology patria, patriotism. It's interesting.
And why being exiled from one's city, and thereby also exiled from one's family, kinship group, and the burial site of one's ancestors and their shrines was considered the worst of all punishments in ancient Mediterranean city-states. The individual per self did not exist, and without family, one was nothing. As these cities grew in population, the ruling families of these polities increasingly saw the need for established written codes and laws to organize their societies. One of the first was written by Draco for the city of Athens. Often described as the first Athenian constitution, it is actually more a set of harsh punishments for violations, hence the common colloquial term draconian. The law concerns itself with tribal rules and blood feuds, how to punish murders, how to settle family disputes, almost always in favor of brothers, fathers, and sons, with daughters and mothers being secondary. Draco's laws are in many ways tribal laws, norms, and customs, not that different from the tribal laws and norms and customs that we find within modern kinship tribal societies, be they in the hills of Afghanistan, the Arabian desert, or the mountains of Albania. By 600 BC, Athens was ruled by an oligarchy of interconnected tribal families, descendants of the city's founders. These were kin groups who vied for power and, after the end of the monarchy, agreed to a system of elections amongst themselves to settle political matters and elect an archon. The archon would be an effective prime minister of the city for a one-year term. However, this system of governance started to become increasingly unstable with the growing population of Athens. Agnatic lines of kinship groups started to branch out considerably with the rising population, producing more disconnected family groups. More importantly though, Athens started growing and increasing a non-noble and non-tribal population. Lower castes of society started increasingly growing in ranks, from ordinary workers to craftsmen to fishermen to farm laborers to slaves and others. A citizenry started to emerge. What's more, many of the lower castes of Athenian society had lost their citizenship rights and privileges through being in debt. Athenians in debt were able to put their own personhood, or that of their immediate family, on the line as a security for the loan they had taken, a means by which the Athenian noble families kept them under control through debt patronage, in essence, rendering people in debt into slavery and thereby in service of the oligarchic networks of families. There were two political houses of representation in Athens during that time. The Ecclesia, which was open to every single Athenian citizen and the place of discussion and the settling of disputes, and the Areopagus, which was the actual legislative body and membership of which was restricted to former archons only. This political framework was increasingly unstable and the source of rising social conflict when Solon became archon in 594 BC. He acquired this position through the support of the underprivileged classes and instituted enormous changes to the structure of the Athenian society. First, Solon banned the practice of debt on the security of the personhood of the debtor, meaning people could no longer sell themselves into slavery. Second, Solon implemented a
Makes sense, good policy.
land reform that divided the farmland surrounding Athens up among the tenant farmers, creating a class of small landowners.
Yeah, redistributing
Third,
land.
he banned restrictions on movement, allowing this new class of farm owners to participate within the political process of Athens. And fourth, he proceeded to expand the office of archon to 9 offices, thereby expanding political representation. With these 4 measures, Solon appeased the lower classes of Athens and gave them more political power at the expense of the noble families who had until then ruled Athens. But Solon also had to ensure the goodwill and cooperation of the noble families, which he did. He categorized Athenian society into 4 classes sorted by income, of which only the top 2 were able to hold the office of archon. He then created a new chamber of representation called the
Somewhat like castes, huh?
Boule, which would act as the executive branch of the government, members of which could only be from the 4 main aristocratic families of Athens. And these 4 aristocratic families were also the only ones who could become archons. However, the pool of political representation had through this been greatly expanded, and this system offered checks with which lower classes, through popular participation, could enforce constraints and checks on the elites who ruled them. What started to happen here with Solon was that the transformation of Athens from a tribal society of norms into a state society of laws started taking shape. Solon next abolished Draco's laws. The laws that Solon replaced them with are noted for creating a semblance of equality before the law for all Athenians, no matter their class. Solon
which is great.
Accomplished all of these changes within 1 year of office, and then voluntarily went into 10 years of exile to resist the temptation of meddling with his accomplishments in his own favor.
That's awesome, actually. It sounds a bit like Washington. Huh, interesting.
What followed Solon were a series of tyrants who tricked themselves into power or seized such by military force. However, these tyrants continued the construction process of an Athenian city-state that increasingly abandoned tribal structures. Religious ceremonies were made public festivities, thereby abandoning the once strictly private nature of religious celebration. Courts and road networks were established to better connect the surrounding countryside into Athens through jurisdiction and infrastructure. Athens started to develop a citizenry that saw itself as distinctively Athenian, no longer just as classes and blood relatives within a tribal social structure, but as a society in which they shared and lived together as Athenians. The tyrants were removed in 508 BC, and the archonship democracy returned. With it came a new set of reforms. Taxes were introduced on property and on wealth. These taxes were used to build the harbor of Piraeus and thereby expand Athenian trade. The 5th century BC also came with the discovery of rich silver ore deposits in the hills of Attica surrounding Athens. That silver wasn't grabbed by tribes to enrich themselves. Instead, after debate, concession, and a vote, the decision was made to use the silver mines to build an Athenian navy, to then add an additional tax on the wealthy to maintain that navy, and to establish a minted Athenian currency, furthering the process into statehood. On a side note, ancient Greek currencies are important to archaeologists. Every Greek city and kingdom had its own, with its own symbols on the coins. The Athenian owl, the Macedonian sun, the
Awesome coins. I like the currency symbols. That owl is pretty awesome.
rosebuds of Rhodes, the Pegasus of Corinth,
Pegasus, that's cool.
and many more. They allow us to determine where trade was historically facilitated, and when we find an ancient ship, we can tell exactly where it came from because of the coins. The only exception to this is Sparta. Spartans used simple metal rods as currency and rejected coins because
Interesting.
metal rods could easily and quickly be melted down into spear tips in times of war. Sparta did so because it was a militaristic exception to the state-building process throughout Greece. To cement this new system of taxation in Athens, additional social reforms were required, which Athenians did by abolishing the 4 noble families and replacing them with 10 new tribes of Athens. Each of those was divided into 30 subgroups that were further divided into subgroups, creating a total of 139 political units, thereby replacing the tribal structures and creating legislative constituencies. These constituencies were called demes and were widely spread throughout the region of Attica. This finally destroyed the tribal structures on which Athens had once been founded on and replaced it with a state structure. Every man over the age of 30 could serve as a representative in the executive chamber. Because there were term limits of 1 year and because every member could at best only serve 2 terms, this meant that political power was incredibly accessible. Almost every man of Athens at some point in his life served as a politician, which worked
That's pretty interesting.
as a counterweight to the noble family elites. The main means of popular control in this society was ostracism by law, by which if the citizens of a city, of which up to 6,000 could vote, could anonymously vote once a year to exile a citizen from the city. The
Epic. It's actually kind of a cool policy. Definitely has flaws, but still pretty cool.
fear of
Like, you could bribe people and all that, but
this exile by vote, which in essence was a populist mechanism of checks and balances, kept the city's nobles and elites from abusing power and having to, at the very least, abide by a standard that appeased the rest of the citizenry. This Athens, the city-state, would be the Athens we all know from popular history, from its wars with Persia and Sparta, its philosophers, its plays and theatres and more. The creation of the Athenian state resulted in an explosion of wealth, commerce, creativity and power, facilitated through an unshackled citizenry that was freed from tribal constraints by the formation of a state. One of my favorite ways of displaying this gradual transformation is by looking at ancient Greek statues. Greeks started building statues after opening trade with Egypt. It is very clearly visible how Greek statues imitated Egyptian statues. However, after
good point.
500 BC and the creation of the Athenian state and its citizenry, something changed. The statues became more expressive and lively in Greece, while in Egypt, whose institutions didn't undergo a transformation into citizenry statehood, art did not change much until the Egyptians were conquered by outsiders. Ancient Greece is a weirdly romanticized thing in our day and age.
True.
Inspired by writers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who wrote in praise of the virtues of the ancients as they sought to destroy the feudal order of the present nobles.
Wish we did that a bit more like Persia or ancient Iran, because it was quite the interesting state.
Pierre praised ancient Greece as the ultimate manifestation of liberty. Similar undertones shaped the writings of Edward Gibbon and other Enlightenment writers, who sought to paint an image of an ancient and lost freedom of the classical era, one that was destroyed by the barbarism of medieval Christianity. It's why we find so much Greek symbolism in our modern republican and democratic institutions, but their romantic visions, as we know today, were untrue. Ancient Greek society was by no means a secular society, let alone a humanistic society. The building blocks of ancient society were family, the worship of ancestors, and tribal loyalty. Individual liberties did not play much of a role in these societies beyond the individual's service to family, tribe, and eventually the state. That's why when fascism emerged, it also posed with ancient Hellenic symbolism, and why YouTubers who pose as intellectual heavyweights do so with ancient Greek statues as their profile pictures or name themselves after ancient Greek institutions, and therefore are always somewhat laughable. Nevertheless, ancient Greek social development is very interesting to us, because through its documentation we can see how the process of development from a tribal society into a state society transpires. How that change is facilitated through the creation of institutions that create a public participation and interest within the matters of the state, as well as limit state power and its abuse. Ancient Greece is not an ancient liberty worth idealizing, but it gives us a great insight into how the first states came to be, and how societies transition from tribal into state structures. We can observe
the transition is absolutely interesting. It's one of the most fascinating things, I think, of this video, just the transition from this tribal society to a state society. And we can see it play out all throughout the world even. But this is one of the first examples.
Observe how loyalty to a tribal family clan was replaced by loyalty to a communal state, how norms and customs were replaced by laws, and how structures of restraint and control were implemented to shackle rulers into accountability. One of the most valuable history lessons that ancient Athens can teach us is how states are created.
Absolutely.
In the next video we will talk about Russia, and we will try to answer the question of why Russia is so authoritarian, by taking a deep look at the history of its state institutions and where they came from. Subscribe if you want to see that, and do not forget to like, share and comment to help out this channel. If you want to help out this channel more, you can become a patron or...
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. So if you enjoyed my reaction, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps out. And comment down below with your thoughts. Let's actually check out the comments for this video too. Okay. I think Athens went through more phases than the average teenager. Athens also has more debt than the average teenager. Not if you are a US student. Well, even if you are a US student, if you go through the proper channels and you do things in a smart way, then you won't have much debt. If you go to a community college or a state college, you don't have to go and take on all this debt. it's usually the people who have all this debt that go to private colleges and private universities, which is not the best idea. This is my first attempt to try to summarize what would usually be a 4-hour series into under 20 minutes. I hope it worked, and that this video is still good enough according to the standard of quality that you may expect. I'm glad he's getting sponsors on the most deserving channels of it. Agree, that was a great video. Budges the government noticeably improves life for lower class without ruining the upper class, restores political and social stability, refuses to capitalize on his success, leaves. Amazing. Absolutely based Sigma chat. This bit of history sounds like the setup for a joke, not gonna lie. Why must there be an upper class? They do literally nothing. Well, the idea is that they contributed a lot to earn the right to be decadent parasites, but it kind of falls apart when they just pass on the privilege to their kids. Only Kraut would say that a short video is 18 minutes. Hey Kraut, before this place gets full, just want to say thank you for the Turkish series. Learned a lot and I'm glad people saw it. Cheers man, every content of your channel is amazing. Good luck. Up with you, the Turkish Century was one of the best series I've seen here. Captivating, funny, and educational. I was hoping to see at least one Turk commenting in a video about Greece, and here it is. It actually got me into reading a huge book about Ottoman history, all thanks to Kraut. Absolutely right. It makes me sad he never finished the series he was planning for Japan. Kraut's channel is so civil and wholesome, even Turks commenting on a video about Greeks aren't hostile. No, not a 6-hour video on why Luxembourg caused the fall of communism. Cringe. We all know that Sparta used those metal rods for more than just warfare and currency. Yeah, probably. Ancient Greece cared more about family than the whole Fast and Furious series combined. Greeks then. We will create democracy, philosophy, Western art, code of laws, and many scientific/mathematical discoveries. Greeks now. Germany, where's my money? Yeah. Oh, I love democracy. Solon. Turkey gets 3-part series. Greece gets 17 minutes. Greece, Malaka. Poland Bowl videos are the most advanced form of history education. Agreed, yeah. Greek society be like, I got a family. Politicians, it can't hurt when I have direct control over that. The legendary Solon. Yeah, mate, let's trash the old system, improve it, and then go on an adventure. Whenever humans cooperate, they transcend to another level of civ. True. Unity is victory. Cyrus. Blood for the blood gods, skulls for the skull throne. Nice 40k references. I was always fascinated with ancient Greek history, art, science, literature, architecture, theater, democracy, mythology, history, everything that shaped the Western civilization started thousands of years before in these early city-states. Oh, I think we also should give credit to, other civilizations as well, not just the Greeks or Romans, the Carthaginians, the Gauls, the Celtic peoples, as well as the Iranians, the Persians, the Arab civilizations as well, the Chinese, so many inventions. There's so many things to think about, as well as, of course, the New World with the Aztecs and Mayans and Incans. Yeah. Dude, this content is my research subject for a degree. I found very satisfying. Love from Turkey to my Greek neighbors. Well, that was unexpected. Turks studying Greek history. That's why. Your president won't like it. Greek history is part of his heritage, though. Incoming jokes about Greece being developed in the past and underdeveloped in the present. Oof. While Athens was leading in all fields, be it governance, models, architecture, etc., the city-state of Sparta, right next though it was a functioning slave society. Well, yeah, they were all slave societies, though. The Lacedaemonian state just institutionalized it by dividing ethnically with Spartans on top and Helots on the bottom, as opposed to dividing it by market forces / war booty / some other system. The problem with that is that there is no evidence of any actual ethnic difference between the Spartans and their slaves. This was simply part of their mythology. Fair point, tribal probably would have been a better word, but the overall criticism still stands. This video seems like a very good summary of Colonges, the ancient city. One of so few people whose videos I await. It is here again. Thank you, kind parrot. Oh. Bit long of a comment. Civilization is where laws rule, not men, Aristotle. Good point, yeah. If you fail, your gods will die. Wait, but I thought my gods can't die. Your ancestors will too. But they're already dead. No, they're not, bro. They're spoopy ghosts. If you don't fight, they will surely truly die. Okay, but I didn't really like that. Don't go to war and we'll kill you. Me, City Great. Hail, City, yeah. Imagine if Athenians could still become a slave because of that. All of Greece would be enslaved. Oh, I like the ostracism thing. Vote someone out of your country for good once a year. Sounds like cancel culture on steroids. It does sound like cancel culture. Every law can be ripe for abuse, but it's necessary to keep people in line. Imagine buying bread with a metal rod. Yeah, I'd like a loaf of bread. That'll be 12 rods. There's nothing more important to the ancient Greeks than family. Funny thing about all the Greek imitation architecture seen across Europe. A tour guide in Athens told us they're all based on the Arch of Adrian, a structure commissioned when Rome took over Greece. The Greek who built it made a brick and mortar Roman main archway topped with marble pillar and triangular roof Greek. The point was that it was a secret fuck you to Rome, and apparently some Greek historians like to view structures such as the Arc de Triomphe and Brandenburg Gate as a continuation of the defiant Greek spirit, unbeknownst to the builders. I think it might have just been his national pride talking, but find it interesting nonetheless. Interesting. Let's check out the Arch of Adrian. Yeah, interesting. Interesting stuff. Yeah, okay. Best channel on YouTube is back. Euros or something. I don't know, I'm Swiss. Love your content. It inspired me to study more subjects about history. I haven't watched the video yet, but I know for a fact that it will be excellent. Damn, the Spartans are just in another dimension, huh? Kraut, geography teacher. This guy is literally going to make me pass to college one day, you'll see. Solon's achievements were so extraordinary, I feel like he's just a myth. They had a lot more emphasis on ancestor worship than I'd ever heard of. Old Grease Ball, we live in a society. Young Helen Ball, so that's what you call it. Man. Ever since I found Kraut's videos, I've been able to see what a YouTube channel used professionally and bluntly to educate people on subjects that are arbitrarily as well as politically used without proper objectivity and or respect should be run. Thank you, Kraut, and keep up the amazing work. Thank you for the draconian etymology. That's a new entry in my Pokédex. Kraut and Historia Civilis are my two favorite channels. Always such amazing work. When a short video is still longer than 90% of videos on this platform. Yeah. This video was great, and I'm super excited for the next one as well. I've been hoping you do a deep dive into Russian history for a while now. Don't you mean they named themselves after ancient Mesopotamian kings? Just commenting to see if he was referring to anyone other than Sargon. Interesting stuff. Last time I was this early, Tenochtitlan was still the largest city in the Americas before the Spanish nation attacked. Roma Eterna. Oh, I like that. Eastern Roman Empire. Yeah, Roman Empire, really. Byzantine is a stupid name. It should not be Byzantium. It's Rome. Anyway. B for B would be proud. You have come so far since the hate times. Thank you for the great content. It really is something special. One of the very interesting things about ancient Greece that I would love to see coming back is the ostracization policies. Man, this was a great video though. Really enjoyed it. And if you enjoyed my reaction, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps out. And comment down below with your thoughts. This was seriously a great video though. Really enjoyed it. Super enlightening just on the subject of Greece. It fills in a lot of these, I guess, blank spots that I had. So yeah, thanks for watching.